In the heart of the ancient city of Babylon, there emerged a tale as extraordinary as the land itself. Our story begins in the modest abode of the city's chief idol maker, a craftsman named Azar. His hands skillfully molded clay into idols to sell to those who would enshrine them within their homes. It is within the walls of this house that Allah the Almighty, the Most Wise, destined that a child would be born, who would shape the course of a life ordained for greatness, purpose, and an enduring legacy. This boy would be called Ibrahim. As a child, the dusty workshop of Ibrahim's father became a playground where the clay idols stood as silent playmates. The young boy's nimble fingers would dance among the idols, picking them up and running with them. Some of the idols were so big that he would find a place to sit on top of them. Yet, each innocent show was shadowed by his father's stern gaze, who, upon catching sight of his son at play, would cast a disapproving glance. From the tender age of 10, Allah bestowed upon Ibrahim a remarkable gift, a gift that surpassed the ordinary bounds of childhood, a divine infusion of wisdom and intelligence that set him apart from his youthful peers. Ibrahim's curious spirit led him to wander alone through the bustling maze of the city. As he strolled along its ancient streets, he couldn't help but witness a mixture of beliefs, each etched into the very fabric of the city's soul. Sitting proudly on the landscape was a majestic temple, served as a place of devotion, where eager worshippers poured their intense worship onto idols molded from clay and stone. These artifacts bore the permanent mark of craftsmanship, skillfully fashioned by the hands of Ibrahim's own father. As Ibrahim continued to mature, his wise observations within his father's workshop took on a deeper significance. One day, he stood fascinated by the sight of his father meticulously crafting an idol distinguished by its unusually large ears. Intrigued, Ibrahim questioned his father about the peculiarity of this particular creation. "Oh, my father, out of all the idols you have made, why have you made this with big ears?" Azar, with a sense of pride, explained, "This one is special. Its oversized ears symbolize its extraordinary ability to hear everything. People will find it unique, and it will undoubtedly sell well." Ibrahim's growing wisdom and insight sowed seeds of doubt. He pondered the inconsistency of an idol fashioned to hear while being by its very nature lifeless. With a mix of concern and conviction, Ibrahim gazed at his father, his eyes respectful, yet reflecting the conflict brewing within his soul. "Oh, my dear beloved father," he began, his voice a gentle plea, "why do you continue to create and worship these idols that neither listen, nor see, nor offer any benefit? Some knowledge has come to me, and I implore you to listen and to think." In the stillness of the workshop, Ibrahim continued, "Father, we must not serve the devil, for he has made a covenant to destroy us through disobedience to the Lord of all the worlds." Azar, confronted by his son's courageous tone, responded with a mix of frustration and sternness. "Enough of this talk. Are you someone who turns away from our gods? If you don't stop, I will make sure it's me who will stone you to death. Now leave me and go away." The threat hung in the air, and a heavy silence settled between them. Undeterred, Ibrahim met his father's gaze with a calm resilience. "Oh, my father, may peace be upon you. May you be safe," he uttered with a quiet sincerity. "I will seek forgiveness from the one true God, for he has been very kind and is dear to me. If my speech displeases you, then I will choose to separate myself." With these parting words, Ibrahim departed from his father's presence, embarking on nightly journeys beneath the tranquil skies, seeking solace and divine guidance. As Ibrahim transitioned into adolescence, the vessel of experience sculpted him into an even more intelligent and wise individual. His journey of self-discovery led him to engage in profound conversations with his people, challenging their perspectives. Drawn to the grand temple that echoed with the voices of devotion, Ibrahim's limitless thirst for understanding led him to venture into these sacred halls. His mere presence stirred ripples of discomfort amongst the worshippers, for his questioning voice disrupted the tranquil sanctity they sought in prayer. Yet undeterred by their disapproval, Ibrahim fearlessly challenged the worshippers, his voice cutting through the hallowed air. "Do you see what you're worshipping?" he questioned, appealing to their sense of logic and reason. "How can these clay statues bring you any benefit? Do they listen to you, or can they harm or benefit you?" Ibrahim paused, keenly observing the faces of his audience, waiting for any glimmer of curiosity to ignite in their eyes. As silence continued, showing no signs of the sparks of inquiry he sought, he concluded, "I fail to see any benefits coming from them. I believe in the one true God, the provider who sustains me and grants me healing when I am ill." As the son of the city's chief idol maker, Ibrahim possessed an inherent shield, a natural protection that dissuaded the people from openly challenging him. Leaving the temple behind, Ibrahim resolved to take matters into his own hands. A determination burned within him to rid the cities of the idols that stood as silent gods of blind devotion. Once a year, the people of the city gathered to commemorate their idols in a grand festival that captivated the entire city. The air buzzed with excitement as family and friends prepared to leave their homes and engage in festivities outside the city walls. Ibrahim, however, stood apart from the crowd, his gaze fixed on the temple and the many idols within. The festivities did little to stir any joy within him. When asked to join the gathering, he politely declined, stating that he wasn't feeling well. His illness, however, wasn't physical. It was a burden carried within the confines of his troubled mind. The night draped the city in a cloak of shadows, concealing Ibrahim as he slipped away. A bag slung over his shoulder contained a modest meal, a flask of water, and an axe, his chosen companions for the journey that lay ahead. The distant echoes of the festival served as a lingering melody as he made his way towards the grand temple, determined to confront the symbols that had long cast a shadow over his city. Arriving at the temple, Ibrahim's eyes fixed upon the three main idols standing proudly at the back. The grandeur of the largest one in the middle seemed to mock him, a towering testament to the devotion that had veiled the city's true spirit. With quiet resolve, he approached the idol on the left and spoke. "Have some food." The words hung in the air, unanswered by the lifeless figure. Ibrahim then turned his attention to the idol to his right. "Do you want some water?" Silence enveloped the sacred space, and with a resigned sigh, he placed the food and drink at their feet. The idols remained quiet, unmoved by the offerings. In the stillness of the temple, Ibrahim drew the axe from his side. The moonlight, filtering through the temple's window, reflected off the cold, gleaming blade. With each swing, the once majestic idols crumbled under the force of Ibrahim's determination. Stone fragments scattered across the temple floor, creating a mosaic of shattered devotion. His eyes now fixed on the grand idol in the middle, Ibrahim ascended the debris of broken idols, and the colossal figure loomed above him, its cold, unyielding gaze meeting his defiant stare. Without hesitation, Ibrahim smiled and tied a sturdy rope holding the axe and placed it around the idol's neck. Descending from the idol, Ibrahim looked upon the remnants of the shattered statues. He saw the potential for renewal, a chance for the people to redefine their traditions beyond the confines of stone and wood. He retraced his steps through the deserted streets, back towards his home. The next morning, the sun ascended, casting its golden glow upon the city. As the people returned, their hearts still dancing with the remnants of the festival, as they approached the grand temple, an uneasy murmur spread through the crowd. The once proud idols now lay in ruins, a shattered testament to a night of rebellion. Gasps of horror escaped the lips of the onlookers as they surveyed the wreckage. Stone fragments and debris littered the sacred grounds, and the once majestic idols were reduced to rubble. Panic rippled through the crowd, and a collective disbelief settled upon the faces of the people who had only hours before celebrated the festival. In the midst of this chaos, a realization dawned upon the crowd. The absence of Ibrahim, the young man who had declined to partake in the festival, became a glaring piece to the puzzle. Whispers spread, weaving a narrative of a boy discontent with the traditional worship of idols, a boy who had taken matters into his own hands. The temple priest, his face contoured with anger, stepped forward and raised his hand to command attention. "Bring Ibrahim forward," he yelled, his voice cutting through the murmur of the crowd. Two guards, their expressions a mix of curiosity and apprehension, approached Ibrahim and escorted him to the center of the temple. The air was charged with tension as the temple priest glared at Ibrahim, demanding an explanation for the desecration of the grand temple. "Is this your doing, Ibrahim?" the temple priest shouted, his eyes ablaze with fury. Ibrahim confronted the accusing stare of the temple's priest with unwavering composure. He gently shook his head, a subtle gesture signifying his apparent lack of knowledge about the night's events. A hushed tension fell upon the crowd, each member holding their breath, awaiting the priest's attempt to challenge Ibrahim's claim. The temple priest, enraged, demanded, Why would you bring destruction to the sacred place of our idols?" Ibrahim, undeterred by the temple priest's anger, raised his eyes towards the remaining idol, the largest one in the temple. "Look there," Ibrahim said, his voice steady. "It seems this idol knows more than you think." Confused murmurs arose from the crowd as they followed Ibrahim's gaze to the towering figure. With a calm demeanor, Ibrahim pointed directly at the axe lodged around the neck of the bound idol. "It looks to me that idol knows what happened, as it has an axe around its head," he declared. "Maybe you should ask him." Upon hearing Ibrahim's claim of ignorance, a heavy silence settled over the temple. The temple priest, who had initially displayed an air of outrage, lowered his head in contemplation. Ibrahim, recognizing the gravity of the moment, seized the opportunity to address the temple priest. With a deep, resigned sigh, Ibrahim asked, "How can you worship these idols who cannot even help themselves?" His words challenging the very foundation of the city's long-held beliefs. The temple priest, his pride wounded, turned to his fellow priests with a fervent determination. "We must avenge our gods," he declared, his voice echoing through the temple. "Take this boy and prepare a great fire, a fire that has never been seen before." The temple priests, driven by a burning desire to avenge their gods, had commanded each person in the city to contribute to the construction of a monumental fire. Every resident was instructed to gather a pile of dry firewood. The outskirts of the city became a gathering ground for this chilling task. The word of Ibrahim's impending sacrifice echoed far beyond the walls of the city, reaching most of Babylon, drawing curious crowds to witness the dramatic events unfolding. As the crowd gathered on the outskirts of the city, the temple priests faced an unforeseen dilemma. The sheer size of the firewood pile, now resembling a formidable hill, posed as a challenge. A hushed discussion developed among the priests, contemplating how to approach the task of bringing Ibrahim near the towering fire once it was ignited. One priest suggested placing Ibrahim into the fire before it was set ablaze, but another voiced concern about the risk of Ibrahim escaping during these crucial moments when the flames consumed the wood. The temple priest, determined to ensure the success of the sacrifice, proposed a solution that sent a shiver through the gathering assembly. "Build a catapult," he declared with a stern voice. The crowd mumbled in astonishment as craftsmen were summoned to construct a formidable machine that would hurl Ibrahim into the heart of the impending inferno. Days passed, and the craftsmen toiled tirelessly to build the catapult. Its structure rose against the backdrop of the colossal firewood pile, an ominous symbol of the lengths to which the temple priests were willing to go to carry out their vengeful act. The fire, once ignited, raged ferociously, as if possessed by a limitless hunger. The flames were allowed to burn intensely for 7 days, a measure taken to ensure the fire's intensity. The day of reckoning arrived, and the crowd swelled with anticipation. The catapult, a monstrous creation of fire and wood, stood ready to propel Ibrahim into the heart of the colossal fire. Ibrahim, calm and composed, was led to the catapult, showing no signs of distress or fear. The temple priests, whose faces were hardened by conviction, prepared to carry out their duty. The catapult creaked and groaned as it was loaded, the tension in the air palpable. The people watched as the mechanism was set into motion. The catapult released its payload and Ibrahim soared through the air. Yet, in this pivotal moment, when Ibrahim should have succumbed to the all-consuming flames, a divine intervention occurred. Allah, in His infinite mercy, commanded the fire to be cool and a place of tranquility for Ibrahim. As Ibrahim descended into the flames, a mysterious serenity enveloped him, and the scorching heat turned into a gentle warmth. From within the protective embrace of the divine intervention, Ibrahim spoke the words, "Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel." Allah is sufficient for me, and it is to Him whom I depend. The flames, now under the guardianship of the Almighty, continued to dance around Ibrahim without inflicting any harm. As the flames of the once roaring fire finally subsided, leaving behind nothing but ash, a collective gasp swept through the watchful crowd. As the smoke cleared, there sat Ibrahim, untouched and unscathed, without a mark on his body and not a trace of ash on his clothes or face. Ibrahim, guided by the divine protection that had shielded him from the flames, walked through the city with a quiet determination. The echoes of the miraculous events reverberated through the streets, igniting discussions and debates amongst the people. Nimrod, who was the king of the city, was intrigued by the tales of Ibrahim's miraculous survival. Eager to understand more about the young man's beliefs, Nimrod summoned Ibrahim to his court. As Ibrahim stood before the king, Nimrod inquired, "Tell me about this God of yours." With a calm and unwavering demeanor, Ibrahim responded, "My Lord is the one that causes life and death." A subtle smirk played on Nimrod's lips. I cause life and death," he declared confidently. Unfazed by Ibrahim's assertion, Nimrod turned to his guards and commanded, "Go and get 2 prisoners." The guards swiftly carried out the king's orders, returning with two shackled individuals. As they stood before the throne, the air in the court became heavy with anticipation. Nimrod studied the prisoners, then pointed to one and declared, "You can go free." The freed prisoner's eyes widened in disbelief and gratitude as the shackles were removed, granting him an unexpected pardon. However, Nimrod's gaze shifted to the second prisoner, and with a stern expression, he announced, "You are sentenced to death." The condemned prisoner's face contorted with fear and despair as the weight of the pronouncement sank in. The court watched in silence as the guards led the doomed prisoner away, his fate sealed by the decree of the king. Ibrahim observed the proceedings with a measured gaze. Nimrod, confident in his ability to wield life and death, sought to demonstrate his authority in the face of Ibrahim's assertion of a higher power. Undeterred by the king's display, Ibrahim spoke with a steadfast conviction. "My Lord causes the sun to rise from the east, so make it rise from the west, if you are indeed all-powerful." Nimrod, momentarily taken back by Ibrahim's challenge, pondered the implications of the young man's words. The court, filled with tension, awaited the king's response to this audacious request. The courtiers and the guards exchanged uncertain glances, unsure of how the king would respond to this direct challenge to his authority. Nimrod, finally breaking free from his initial shock, grappled with the realization that there were forces beyond his control. After a moment of contemplation, Nimrod finally spoke. "You may go." The court, witnessing the unexpected turn of events, erupted into whispers and murmurs. Ibrahim, now released from the royal presence, walked away from the court with a quiet confidence, leaving behind a king who had been confronted with the limits of his earthly authority. Inspired by a deep curiosity and a desire to strengthen his faith even further, Ibrahim found himself contemplating the miraculous way in which Allah brings people back from the dead. Driven by a genuine yearning to witness this divine power, Ibrahim humbly turned towards Allah in prayer. In the stillness of his solitude, Ibrahim raised his hands to the heavens and prayed, "O Allah, I believe in your power, but grant me the strength to strengthen my heart further through witnessing your miracles." Allah, in his infinite wisdom, responded to Ibrahim's plea. "Do you doubt my ability to bring life to the dead?" "I do not doubt, my Lord, but I seek to fortify my faith," Ibrahim replied with humility. Allah, the most wise, the most merciful, then instructed Ibrahim to gather 4 birds. He was to cut them into pieces and mix the parts together. Afterwards, Ibrahim was to make 4 distinct piles, placing each pile in different areas. Allah guided him further, instructing him to move away to a distance and then call the birds back to him. Trusting in Allah's guidance, Ibrahim meticulously carried out the divine instructions. He then moved away to a distance, his heart pounding with anticipation. With unwavering faith, Ibrahim called out to the birds. As the echo of his prayer hung in the air, a miraculous sight unfolded. The once lifeless and scattered parts of the birds defied the laws of nature as they seamlessly came together. In response to Ibrahim's call, the rejuvenated birds took flight, soaring through the air as if nothing had happened to them. Overwhelmed by the spectacle before him, Ibrahim fell to his knees in gratitude and awe. Allah had answered his prayer, demonstrating the divine power to bring life to the dead in a profound and tangible way. Fueled by the profound experiences and divine interventions that had shaped his journey, Ibrahim made a momentous decision. With nothing left to bind him to his homeland, he resolved to embark on a new chapter of his life. Gathering his belongings and accompanied by his nephew Lut, Ibrahim set forth from Babylon, leaving behind the echoes of his encounters with King Nimrod and the miraculous events that had unfolded. As they journeyed towards the vast expanse of Asham, encompassing the modern-day regions of Syria, Palestine, Lebanon, and Jordan, the landscape unfolded before them, a view of rolling hills, dry deserts, and ancient cities. In the city of Haraan, Ibrahim and Lut took rest, their journey now bringing them into a land where the worship of celestial bodies held control. Intrigued by the practices of the people, Ibrahim decided to observe a gathering of star, moon, and sun worshippers. Under the vast canopy of the night sky, Ibrahim approached the congregation. He watched as the star worshippers, with awe and reverence, prostrated themselves before the distant lights in the heavens. Curious, Ibrahim approached them and asked, "Is this my Lord?" The star worshippers, nodding with smiles on their faces, affirmed their devotion and continued their prayers. As the night progressed, the moon emerged, casting its silvery glow across the heavens. The stars, dimming in the moonlight, disappeared from view. Observing this transition, Ibrahim turned to the star worshippers and questioned, "How can the stars be my Lord when they vanish in the presence of the moon?" The star worshippers, unsettled by Ibrahim's inquiry, frowned and departed, leaving the moon worshippers amused. Ibrahim shifted his attention to the moon worshippers, who began their prayers under the soft radiance of the moon. Engaging with them, he asked, "Is this my Lord?" The moon worshippers nodding in agreement. Yet as the night unfolded, dawn approached, and the sun ascended, causing the moon to fade away. Addressing the moon worshippers, Ibrahim questioned, "How can the moon be my Lord when it retreats in the face of the sun?" Puzzled, the moon worshippers left, and Ibrahim turned his gaze towards the rising sun. Throughout the day, he observed the rituals of the sun worshippers. From dawn to dusk, they prayed beneath the radiant glow of the sun. As the day reached its culmination and the sun descended below the horizon, Ibrahim addressed the worshippers, saying, "This is my Lord, as it has outshunned the moon and caused it to retreat." The sun worshippers, pleased with the acknowledgement, continued in their rituals. Yet, as the cycle continued and the stars reappeared in the night sky, Ibrahim spoke to the sun worshippers once more. "How can any of these be your Lord when each one comes and goes, leaving you in darkness and then returning again?" he questioned. "I turn my face towards the one who has created all of this, and I am not one of those who associate partners with the Almighty." The people, now confronted by Ibrahim's profound observations, stood silent. The realization dawned upon them that the celestial bodies they worshipped were creations, subject to cycles of appearance and disappearance. Ibrahim, unwavering in his monotheistic belief, stood as a beacon of enlightenment in a city immersed in celestial worship. Many years had passed since Ibrahim's encounters with the celestial worshippers in Haraan. He had grown into a man, and his devotion to the one true God had not wavered. Ibrahim found companionship in Sarah, a noble and beautiful young woman whom he married. Together with Ibrahim's nephew, Lut, these three remained steadfast in their worship of the Almighty. They were the only resilient community of monotheists in a land immersed in polytheism. United by a shared faith, Ibrahim, Sarah, and Lut traveled from place to place, preaching the message of monotheism. Despite their sincere efforts, the people they encountered remained entrenched in their polytheistic beliefs, resistant to the call of the one true God. During their travels, a divine revelation reached Lut. The Almighty granted him the glad tidings of prophethood and directed him to journey to the city of Sodom. Accepting this divine responsibility, Lut bid farewell to Ibrahim and Sarah, setting out on a separate path to fulfill his divine mission. The journey of Ibrahim and Sarah continued, leading them to the ancient and majestic land of Egypt. As Ibrahim and Sarah continued their journey through the lands of Egypt, fate led them to a kingdom ruled by a tyrant. The ruler's henchmen, stationed at the kingdom's borders, granted access to travelers, but their intentions were far from benign. Recognizing Sarah's beauty, they immediately saw an opportunity to present her to the king. When questioned about Sarah's relationship to him, Ibrahim sensed the malevolent intent in the man's gaze. Understanding the potential danger, he replied, "She is my sister." With that answer, the henchmen seized Sarah and brought her to the king, where they were separated. In the king's chamber, Sarah found herself facing the tyrant ruler. His admiration for her beauty was evident as he circled her, questioning, "Who is that man to you?" Unwavering in her commitment, Sarah replied, "He is my brother." The king, driven by desire, reached out to touch Sarah. In that moment, she sought refuge in Allah and made a silent supplication. Miraculously, the king's hand froze in midair. Panic etched across his face. He demanded Sarah to release his hand. Her prayers lifted the freeze, but when the king attempted to touch her again, the same mysterious restraint seized his hand once more. Thrice the king tried, and thrice his hand froze at Sarah's supplication. Realizing the gravity of the situation, he accused her of sorcery. In desperation, he promised to release her and Ibrahim if she would undo the enchantment on his hand. Sarah, with divine assurance, released his hand. As a parting gift, the tyrant ruler bestowed upon Sarah a slave girl named Hajar. Sarah, now reunited with Ibrahim, narrated the harrowing encounter. The three of them departed from the kingdom, leaving behind the oppressive ruler and the unsettling episode. Their journey had finally led them to the land of Sham. In this new land they found refuge and settled, their faith unshaken by the trials they had faced. Sarah and Ibrahim, with Hajar by their side, established a community that would play a pivotal role in the unfolding narrative of monotheism and divine guidance. As time passed and Ibrahim and Sarah remained childless, Sarah, in her wisdom and generosity, acknowledged the yearning of her husband's heart. Feeling the weight of her age and the impossibility of conceiving, she approached Ibrahim with a selfless proposal. Aware of the divine promise of children to Ibrahim, she offered him her servant, Hajar, as a means to fulfill that promise. In a gesture of deep trust and love, Sarah presented Hajar to Ibrahim, saying, "Take Hajar as your wife. Perhaps through her you may be blessed with the child you have longed for, as I have reached old age and cannot conceive." Ibrahim, guided by the sincerity and understanding of his beloved wife, accepted the proposition. With reverence and gratitude, he married Hajar, embarking on a new chapter of his life in the pursuit of the divine promise of progeny. In due course, Hajar conceived, and the joy of imminent parenthood filled the hearts of Ibrahim and Hajar. The prospect of a child brought a renewed sense of hope and fulfillment to Ibrahim's life, and the divine promise to materialize. In the fullness of time, Hajar gave birth to a son, and his arrival was celebrated as a manifestation of divine grace. The child was named Ismail, signifying the fulfillment of Allah's promise to Ibrahim and the beginning of a legacy that would shape the course of history. Upon the birth of Ismail, Allah in His divine wisdom revealed to Ibrahim that he would be made a Khalifa, a vicegerent, and through his descendants all the prophets would come. Filled with gratitude, Ibrahim embraced the divine promise, recognizing the profound responsibility bestowed upon him and his progeny. The Almighty's plan took an unexpected turn when Allah revealed to Ibrahim that he must undertake a journey with Hajar and his newly born son. Obedient to his Lord, Ibrahim, without hesitation, prepared for the migration, guided by the divine command. The journey led them through the unforgiving region of the desert until they reached the valley of Mecca. The flat land was harsh, and the strength of the scorching sun intensified their trials. Hajar, with her newborn son Ismail in her arms, faced the challenges of the harsh environment. In a moment of profound obedience, Ibrahim silently handed Hajar a pouch containing water and dates. Without uttering a word, he turned away and began making his way back. Hajar, bewildered and curious, called out to him, "Where are you going?" Ibrahim, steadfast in his resolve, continued without looking back. Concerned, Hajar questioned him again, but received no response. On the third attempt, with a growing sense of realization, Hajar asked, "Has Allah ordered you to do this?" Ibrahim, without looking back, nodded in affirmation. The weight of the divine command was palpable, and Hajar, acknowledging the divine will, found solace in her faith. Ibrahim, guided by Allah's command, continued his journey back to Sarah, leaving Hajar and Ismail in the valley of Mecca. Hajar found herself in the desolate valleys, a barren land where neither vegetation grew nor people resided. The limited supplies of water and dates that Ibrahim had left them with were now exhausted, and hunger and thirst began to take their toll on both Hajar and her newborn son Ismail. As the cries of hunger radiated from Ismail, echoing through the deserted landscape, Hajar, a mother in distress, felt a profound urgency to seek sustenance for her child. Surrounded by the vast emptiness of the valley, she looked to the two mountains, Safa and Marwa, standing in the distance. Driven by desperation, Hajar began to climb the rocky slopes of Mount Safa, hoping to catch a glimpse of any signs of life or source of sustenance in the desolate land. With no success, she descended and ran towards the opposite mountain, Marwa, searching for any signs of relief. Hajar repeated this cycle 7 times, running back and forth between Safa and Marwa, her heart consumed with worry for her hungry and thirsty child. Ismail, in his infant vulnerability, was feeling the pains of hunger so intensely that his tiny feet touched the desert floor. In this moment of dire need, Allah in His infinite mercy commanded Jibreel to intervene. With the edge of his wing, Jibreel struck the ground where Ismail's feet touched, causing a miraculous spring of water to gush forth from the dry land. As Hajar ran back towards Ismail, she noticed a strange occurrence: water bubbling up from the once barren ground. In awe and gratitude, she hurriedly reached the source and gathered the life-sustaining water with her hands. Quenching the thirst of her son, she then drank from the blessed spring, feeling a profound sense of relief and gratitude to the Almighty. However, as the water flowed unchecked, pooling up rapidly, a new concern gripped her heart. fearful that the water might engulf the valley and pose a threat to them, Hajar, guided by a mother's instinct and deep trust in Allah, extended her hands towards the water. With resolve and a plea for the water to cease, Hajar spoke the words, Zam Zam, Zam Zam, imploring the divine intervention to bring the flowing waters to a stop. Miraculously, in response to her supplication, the ceaseless flow of water subsided, and the pool took its form, a life-sustaining well in the heart of the barren valley. Birds, drawn by the newfound oasis, began to circle above, their wings casting shadows on the water's surface. Desert dwellers, nomads, traversing the dry land, observed the unusual sight from a distance. Intrigued by the presence of birds in an area empty of water, their curiosity led them to approach the valley. Upon closer inspection, the travelers were astounded to discover a flowing well in the midst of the desolate landscape. Bewildered, they approached Hajar and inquired about the origins of the water. With a sense of awe, Hajar recounted the miraculous story of Ibrahim, Isma'il, and the divine intervention that had bestowed Zam Zam upon them. The travelers listened in amazement, captivated by the extraordinary tale of faith, sacrifice, and divine providence. Recognizing the sanctity of the water and the profound connection it held to a miraculous event, they sought Hajar's permission to stay nearby. In a spirit of mutual understanding, it was agreed that Hajar, as the custodian, held full rights over the water. Over time, word of the blessed well spread across the desert, and other desert dwellers were drawn to the newfound oasis. The once solitary valley of Mecca began to flourish into a small village town as more people settled in the vicinity, attracting by the life-sustaining waters and the sense of divine blessing that enveloped the area. As the years unfolded, Ibrahim continued to make periodic visits to see his son Ismail and Hajar in the blessed land of Mecca. Each encounter deepened the bond between father and son, and Ibrahim took great joy in witnessing Ismail's growth into a devoted and obedient young man. Ismail, raised in the solitude of the desert, had become not only an obedient son to his father, but also a keen worshipper of the one true God. His heart, like that of Ibrahim, was firmly grounded in monotheism. Their devotion resonated across the sacred valley. The love between father and son, nurtured by shared moments of worship and reflection, radiated through the desert air. The weight of a recurring dream pressed upon Ibrahim's heart like a heavy stone. Night after night, he found himself in a vision where he was sacrificing his beloved son. The dream was not a mere figment of imagination. It was a divine communication, a command from Allah that resonated in the realm of the unseen. Unable to keep the matter to himself any longer, Ibrahim approached his son Ismail with concern. As they sat together, Ibrahim, with a gaze both tender and anxious, shared the details of his recurring dream. "O my beloved son, I have seen in my dream that I am slaughtering you for the sake of Allah. What do you think?" Ismail, with a heart attuned to the divine, looked into the eyes of his father. A serene smile graced his face as he responded with words steeped in patience and submission. "O my father, go ahead and do what you have been commanded to do. If Allah wills, you will find me amongst those who are patient." In that moment, the bond between father and son transcended the ordinary. Ismail's unwavering trust in Allah and his submission to the divine command mirrored the qualities that had defined Ibrahim's life. Both father and son, united in faith, found themselves at the doorstep of a trial that would etch their names in the records of divine obedience. In the heart of the night, Ibrahim quietly gathered his son Ismail and set out from Mecca, a city bustling with life during the day, but now cloaked in silence of the desert night. They moved stealthily, the only sounds being the soft whispers of the night breeze and the crunching of the sand beneath their feet. As they journeyed through the desolate landscape, Ibrahim felt a peculiar presence. Suddenly, a mysterious man appeared before them, his figure shrouded in the darkness. "Where are you going, Ibrahim?" he questioned, his voice lingering in the air. Ibrahim squinted, trying to uncover the face of the stranger. He had not seen this man before, and suspicion crept into his mind. The stranger, sensing Ibrahim's wariness, revealed a cunning smile. Having noticed the knife strapped to Ibrahim's side, the stranger spoke, his voice now taking on a more sinister tone. "Carrying a knife, Ibrahim? Are you planning to sacrifice your own flesh and blood? Do you truly believe God desires such a sacrifice?" Ibrahim's eyes narrowed as he clutched the hilt of the knife defensively. "Who are you to question God's will?" he responded, his voice unwavering. The stranger chuckled, revealing himself to be none other than Iblis, the embodiment of temptation and deceit. "Your blind obedience will lead you astray, Ibrahim. God does not want the sacrifice of your son. Think rationally. Turn back now," Iblis urged, his eyes glinting with malevolence. Ibrahim, undeterred by the devil's words, bent down and scooped up pebbles from the desert floor. With a swift and determined motion, he began to pelt Iblis, each stone a testament to his unwavering faith. The devil recoiled, disappearing into the shadows. However, moments later, Iblis reappeared, persistently attempting to sow doubt into Ibrahim's mind. Once again, Ibrahim reached down, grabbing pebbles, and hurled them towards the devil. The stones found their mark and Iblis vanished once more. Undeterred by these encounters, Ibrahim continued his journey with Ismail, the bond between father and son growing stronger with each step. Iblis, determined to stop their path, made a final attempt to dissuade Ibrahim. Yet, with a heart steadfast in faith, Ibrahim gathered pebbles for the third time and skillfully pelted the devil, sending Iblis retreating into the darkness. As Ibrahim and Ismail arrived at the designated area, a profound understanding passed between them. A silent exchange of eyes conveyed a shared agreement, a deep acknowledgement of the divine command they were about to fulfill. The gravity of the moment weighed heavily on their hearts, but the bond between father and son, intertwined with faith, remained unshaken. In the stillness of the desert, Ibrahim took a deep breath, his hand steady but his heart heavy. He reached for a piece of cloth and gently blindfolded Ismail, a gesture of both protection and submission. Ismail, in turn, accepted the darkness, trusting his father, and more importantly, trusting in God's plan. With profound trust and submission, he guided Ismail to a large rock, placing his son's head gently upon it, the cool surface meeting Ismail's forehead. A serene stillness enveloped the moment as Ibrahim prepared to carry out the divine command. He clutched the knife, its cold steel a weight in his hand, a symbol of the sacrifice he was willing to make. In the quiet desert night, the only sounds were the soft whispers of the wind, carrying echoes of prayer and submission. The universe seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the father's unwavering obedience to be revealed. With a deep breath, Ibrahim braced himself and attempted to carry out the command. The knife cut, but nothing happened. Confused and bewildered, he looked down to his son, only to find Ismail unharmed, laying peacefully on the rock. Undeterred, Ibrahim took a second attempt, the blade once again meeting an invisible barrier. As Ibrahim raised the knife for the third attempt, his heart pounded in his chest, torn between his love for his son and his devotion to God's command. Ismail, blindfolded and trusting in his father's actions, encouraged him with unwavering faith. "Try harder, my father. Maybe you are going too soft," Ismail whispered, his voice carrying the weight of sacrifice. With a deep breath, Ibrahim summoned all his strength and determination. He brought the knife down with full force, the blade finally finding its mark. A cut was made, and the sensation of warm blood on his hands confirmed it. The realization hit him, and a mixture of relief and confusion washed over him as he looked down towards his son. To his astonishment, there lay not his beloved son, but a ram, its throat cleanly cut, blood staining the desert sand. The ram, a substitute provided by the divine mercy of God, had become the symbol of sacrifice, sparing Ismail's life and fulfilling the command. Ibrahim, overwhelmed with gratitude and understanding, removed Ismail's blindfold, and their eyes locked in a profound exchange of relief and recognition. In a manner that befits His Majesty, Allah the Most Wise spoke to Ibrahim. "You have truly affirmed your dream, and you have passed your test." The divine proclamation echoed in the stillness of the night. Ibrahim realized that Allah in His wisdom and mercy had tested his devotion and obedience. The sacrifice was not in taking his son's life, but in the willingness to surrender what he held most dear for the sake of the Creator. Together, father and son, with tears streaming down their faces, praised the Almighty for His guidance and mercy. The ram sacrifice marked the fulfillment of their journey, a journey that tested their faith, resolve, and love for the divine. In the wake of the profound events that unfolded in the desert, Allah's commands continued to guide Ibrahim. The voice of the Almighty resonated within Ibrahim's heart, directing him towards a new divine task. Allah in His wisdom commanded Ibrahim to build the Kaaba, a house of tranquility and a sacred place for all who seek closeness to their Creator. Ibrahim, now deeply attuned to the divine will, received this command with humility and reverence. With the assistance of his son Ismail, they embarked on the sacred mission of constructing the Kaaba, the symbolic house of God. The location chosen for the Kaaba was Mecca, a place designed to become a spiritual epicenter for millions of believers throughout the ages. Ibrahim and Ismail labored tirelessly, guided by the divine blueprint, their hands laying the foundation stones of a structure that would transcend time and generations. As the walls of the Kaaba rose, it became a symbol of unity and devotion for all who would circle it in reverence. Allah's command specified that the Kaaba would be a place of purity, where those who circumambulate, stand in prayer, bow and prostrate would find solace. As Ibrahim and Ismail continued raising the foundations of the sacred Kaaba, their hands embedded with the marks of devotion and sacrifice. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the desert. Ibrahim raised his hands towards the heavens. "Our Lord, accept this from us," Ibrahim prayed, his voice echoing through the vastness of the desert, carrying the sincerity of a father and son, deeply immersed in divine service. "Our Lord, make me and Ismail a people who are subservient to you, and make our progeny a people who are also submit to you." Ibrahim continued the supplication, filled with humility and a yearning for a legacy of faith and devotion. The words hung in the air, a testament to Ibrahim's profound understanding that the construction of the Kaaba wasn't merely a physical endeavor, but a spiritual journey, etched in the records of divine history. As the final stones were laid and the sacred Kaaba stood in all its glory, a profound stillness descended upon the desert. The labor of Ibrahim and Ismail had reached its culmination, yet the vast expanse around them remained eerily silent. In the stillness of the desert, a divine command resonated within Ibrahim's heart. Allah instructed him to stand in the midst of the vast desert and call out, inviting people from far and wide to visit the sacred house. Ibrahim, now puzzled, turned his gaze towards the heavens and addressed Allah. "But my Lord, there is no one here," he spoke, with a blend of confusion and submission. Allah in His infinite wisdom responded, "Do what I have said and leave the rest to me. They will come, on every lean camel, from every valley, and from places far and wide." Embracing the divine instruction, Ibrahim stood upon the barren sands surrounding the sacred house. The desert stretched endlessly before him, seemingly void of life. Undeterred, Ibrahim, the father of monotheism, lifted his voice to the heavens and announced to the empty expanse, "O people, come and visit this sacred house that has been built and perform your pilgrimage." The sun dipped below the horizon and the night unfolded, accompanied only by the shimmering stars and the quiet winds that whispered through the dunes. Ibrahim gathered his son Ismail beside him. "Ismail," he said with a solemn tone, "go and search for a stone unlike any seen before. We will place it in the corner of this sacred house to mark the beginning of our worship." Ismail nodded and set out on his quest, combing the endless sands for a unique stone that would fulfill his father's command. Hours passed and Ismail's search proved fruitless. He returned to find Ibrahim standing near the sacred house, a notable white stone placed in one of its corners. Amazed, Ismail approached his father, questioning the origin of the stone. Ibrahim, with a serene expression, explained, "While you were searching, the angel Jibreel descended and presented me with this extraordinary stone. It is a divine gift to signify the commencement of our worship." Together, father and son marveled at the mysterious white stone, understanding that the journey was not just a physical quest, but a testament to the divine guidance shaping their path. After the establishment of the sacred house and the subsequent calling to pilgrimage, Ibrahim felt a deep yearning to reunite with his beloved wife Sarah. Upon reaching Sham, Ibrahim was overjoyed to reunite with Sarah. The years spent apart had only deepened their connection, and the couple settled into a life of gratitude and contentment. The stories of Ibrahim's remarkable journey, the construction of the sacred house, and the call to pilgrimage became a cherished part of their shared history. Time passed, and one day as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the skies in hues of red and orange, three men, appearing as travelers but without the weariness of a journey, approached Ibrahim's dwelling. These mysterious visitors emitted an otherworldly aura, catching Ibrahim's attention with their striking handsomeness. The strangers warmly greeted Ibrahim, "Salam," the word of peace hanging in the air. Ibrahim responded immediately, reciprocating the greeting with genuine warmth. His intuition sensed a special aura around these guests, but he did not immediately recognize them for who they truly were. Not hesitating for a moment, Ibrahim turned to Sarah and asked her to prepare a fine roasted calf as a meal for their guests. The generosity of Ibrahim's spirit reflected in his immediate decision to offer the best hospitality to the strangers. As Sarah hastened to prepare the meal, Ibrahim engaged in conversation with the three guests. The air was filled with a sense of reverence, and Ibrahim, in his customary humility, sought to learn more about his visitors. As the aroma of the finely prepared roasted calf filled the room, Ibrahim couldn't help but notice the solemn expressions on the face of the three guests. A sense of unease crept over him, especially when they made no move to taste the meal. Ibrahim voiced his concern. "Are you not going to eat?" The silence that followed his question was palpable, and his heart pounded with uncertainty. In a calming and reassuring tone, the leader of the three men spoke, dispelling Ibrahim's fears. "Don't fear, Ibrahim. We are angels that have been sent by Allah to the corrupt city of Sodom, to the people of Lut." Ibrahim, now understanding the divine nature of his guests, felt a mixture of awe and unease. The celestial messengers, being angels, carried with them the gravity of divine decrees and judgments. As the truth unfolded, Ibrahim listened attentively as the leader explained the purpose of their visit. The corruption and transgressions of the people of Sodom had reached a point where divine intervention was inevitable. The angels, ambassadors of Allah's justice and mercy, were entrusted with the task of executing the judgment upon the sinful city. The celestial messengers continued to deliver the messages entrusted to them. They addressed Sarah, who had been listening in the background with a mixture of disbelief and astonishment. "Before we make our way to the city of Sodom," the leader of the angels spoke, "we were commanded by the Almighty to give you glad tidings, Sarah, for you shall bear a son, and his name shall be Issac." Upon hearing this unexpected and miraculous news, Sarah, who had long passed the age of bearing children, was overcome with a whirlwind of emotions. In an outburst of raw emotion, Sarah screamed and in the moment of disbelief began to hit her cheeks. "How can I, a woman who has reached old age, give birth to a child?" she exclaimed, her voice echoing through the room. The angel, responding with a gentle reassurance, said, "This is what your Lord has ordained." The angel continued, delivering another piece of glad tidings that added to the miraculous nature of the divine plan. Not only that, but another glad tiding is that Issac, when he is a man, will also have a son named Yaqub, whom you will also meet. Sarah, though initially suspicious, felt the weight of the divine promise settling within her. The announcement of not just one, but 2 generations to come carried profound significance. The realization that her lineage would continue through Issac and Yaqub filled her heart with gratitude and awe. Having been reassured of the celestial nature of the visitors, Ibrahim's heart was filled with both gratitude and concern. He knew that his nephew Lut resided in the city of Sodom, a place marked by corruption and transgression. Unable to contain his worry, Ibrahim respectfully questioned the angels about Lut's fate. "My nephew Lut is in Sodom with his people," Ibrahim voiced his concern, his eyes reflecting a mix of anxiety and compassion. The angels, in their serene demeanor, responded with a sense of understanding. "We know. Don't worry. The Almighty has blessed Lut, but the people of the city will be perished for their corruption. We have been sent for their destruction." Ibrahim found solace in the assurance that Lut and those who followed the righteous path would be spared. As the angel stood up to leave, Ibrahim, still grappling with the gravity of the news, expressed his gratitude for the divine reassurance regarding his nephew. "May Allah's mercy be upon Lut and those who believe." The legacy of Ibrahim is one of extraordinary resilience and unwavering devotion. From a tender age, he faced countless tests that strengthened his unwavering commitment to the belief in the one true God. Throughout his entire life, Ibrahim migrated, becoming a persistent messenger of monotheism to diverse communities, with only Sarah, Hajar, Lut, and now his 2 sons, Ismail and Issac, walking alongside him as the devoted followers of the divine. His journey, marked by the trials such as the sacrifice of his son, exemplified his profound submission to the divine will. Ibrahim demonstrated that true devotion transcends challenges and trials, earning him the title, the Friend of Allah. Ibrahim's unwavering commitment is written in the pages of history. He stands alone, a prophet whose work and devotion resonate as a unique testament, the only one who in his entirety represented a whole nation within himself.